Ready to redefine your talent strategy? Let's make Redefine the word of the year for your success. Introducing RAS, Recruitment as a Service. Outsource your talent strategy with the O'Connor Group. Our four-tiered approach is crafted to align with your business, whether you're launching a startup or leading a thriving corporation. Our cost-effective solutions are designed to elevate your business and enhance your people strategy, ensuring scalability and strategic growth. Redefine your recruitment strategy with RAS.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Shadow Her Podcast. I'm your host, Marcia O'Connor, founder of Shadow Her. Obviously, for those who don't know, Shadow Her is a nonprofit to help women entrepreneurs and their operations be successful. It's a 6-month course. We just got done our second cohort, and our podcast basically entertains amazing females out there doing amazing things along the world of entrepreneurship. And no other but Morgan Berman is here with us today. Morgan is basically works with Life Science Cares of Philadelphia. She is changing that thing completely around. We're going to talk about that and how she got started. But Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, my pleasure. And, I don't know when you sleep, sister, because I see all the great things you're doing with Life Science Cares. You had started an organization. Let's go back. Let's go back to let's go start at 8 years old. What were you doing at 8 years old?
8 years old. I think at 8 years old, I wanted to be a marine biologist because I thought that basically meant like being a mermaid.
Love it.
That was my original professional ambition.
And then what happened?
And then, then I started to realize that was not what it would entail. Pun intended, tail. So, I grew up with two parents who were both entrepreneurs. So I think that definitely played a role. It couldn't have influenced me. I thought the one thing I knew I didn't want to be was an entrepreneur. So of course, that's what wound up happening for the first 10 years or so. Well, actually, it wasn't the first 10 years. When I first got out of college, I worked in client services. I was doing human services work at Planned Parenthood and the Maternity Care Coalition. And then I did research at Penn, but was very much in the nonprofit world from day one. And then my first company that I built over 10 years ago, I think it's 11 years ago now, wound up becoming a tech service provider for nonprofits. It's called Milk Crate, and it builds mobile apps for nonprofits that want to have their own app that's branded and customizable, but not built from scratch and super expensive and complicated to run. So that's the first business that I built because I had experienced what it was like to run programs at a nonprofit, to be a service provider, to have clients that you're trying to keep track of and communicate with. And that was what it kind of became after a few years of iterating. So that was how like the very beginning of my career kind of unfolded. Should I get into the rest or?
Yeah. I think people love to hear out there that they think automatically you start a company and then done phenomenal and this is your only company. They rarely believe that you've started other companies to make things work. You know what I mean? So It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, so when I was working on that, I started getting really frustrated by the litter crisis in Philly. And so I wound up approaching the city and saying, hey, I have this idea for how we could run basically a better version of the Block Captain program. And I have the tech to help make it actually transparent and scalable. And I got it in the budget. They were excited. They approved it after 2 years of effort. And then they said, never mind. The streets department commissioner, baffling. Anyways, fast forward, I said, you know what? The city is just getting dirtier. We've got to do something. So I launched a consumer funded version. It's called Glitter, and neighbors can crowdfund and chip in to pay for their own basically litter cleaner to come every week on their block and clean the block. And each neighbor contributes what they can afford towards the fundraising goal on the block. And we hire people with barriers to work. We have some great partnerships with organizations that are doing workforce reentry, and Glitter is now run by Brandon Poosley, who I met very early on. He's the full-time CEO, and I kind of support him from the sidelines as I can.
Now, how's that feel? Because you've given up You get up the rein. You know what I mean? To do something else. I mean, that is really hard for an entrepreneur. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it was really, for a number of reasons, an important but difficult challenge. But I think the juxtaposition of Milk Crate, where I was the founder, I was going it alone, and then I had this team, but ultimately, like, the pressure was all on me to make payroll, which often was, a challenge for a very long time.
Sure.
And, there was a lot of pressure on me to kind of figure it out. And by the time I was launching Glitter, I was now a wife and a mother, and I had a lot of other things I needed to be focused on. And I wanted to find a way to still have a positive impact on Philadelphia and take care of my family and kind of continue to grow in my career. And so when the role at Life Science Cares opened up, I thought this is the perfect place for me to stay connected to nonprofits, have a positive impact on Philadelphia, grow as a leader, do something new and different, and including handing over a lot of control to a new business partner that ultimately became an incredible decision that I'm so glad I made. Brandon is doing a phenomenal job, and he's a pleasure to work with. So I think it's been a really great decision. But yeah, it's very much like the opposite energy that you come into as a first time entrepreneur, where you're like, this is mine, I'm in charge, I've got to make it work. Right. It was almost the opposite with Glitter after a while, where it was like, okay, this is yours. How are you going to make it work, and how can I support you while I'm over here doing my other thing?
So. It's not easy. Absolutely. And then you've taken Life Science Cares to a whole new level. So when you went into that and took it over, what was your initial reaction of uh-oh, what did I do?
No, there was no uh-oh. I mean, it was just, I think the reason the board and I really resonated around me as the right fit back when I was interviewing was because it basically was a startup almost starting over, because the Philadelphia chapter had a part-time volunteer executive director who had then left, and there'd been no one kind of other than the board for about 8 or 9 months. Now, Life Science Cares nationally was very established in Boston for years, and in the Bay Area and San Diego. So there were other EDs, other teams doing this great work in other locations, but Philly was kind of starting over. And so I was really excited about, I know how to start things. I've done that with Milk Crate, I've done that with Glitter. I know how to get something off the ground. I know how to build community, do the sales process, do the marketing, build the team, all of those kind of early founder activities were things I knew how to do. And I was excited to bring that to this kind of slightly different, nonprofit, funder, corporate engagement, activity and purpose that was a little bit different than the work I'd been doing, but a lot of the same processes. So it definitely wasn't uh-oh. I think, except maybe I was so not from the life science world. That was definitely am I going to be seen as this random outsider, which I think maybe initially was a little bit the case, but that would happen no matter what. But now I feel very at home and welcomed in that community, in that industry, even though I have basically zero science skills.
You don't need it. You need execution
skills. I'm a biologist.
Yeah, it's all about the execution. If you can put something and get a vision and execute it and all, and do it again and do it well, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you'll be adopted on that, because most people just cannot execute out there with a vision. So, which is really cool. How did you know this was the right spot for you?
Oh, I think the moment that I always point back to is I was sitting on a park bench with Jeff Morazzo, who's the founder of Spark Therapeutics and on my board. And we were having this really exciting and honest conversation about how we were going to think about and measure impact, specifically as it relates to supporting our nonprofits with human and financial capital. And how are we going to know when we succeeded? What kind of experiments were we going to run so that we could come up with the best possible way to support them? Having a conversation like that with someone like that at the very beginning just was incredibly energizing and something I think about all the time.
And you started, because I think for most people, especially entrepreneurs listening, because this is all about the female entrepreneur too, when you start, it's really hard to figure out what's the biggest impact that we had. And so when you look back at that, what do you think the top 3 biggest things that you knew that you had some kind of control of impact? What were they?
That's a great question. I think the biggest one for me has been the iterating of our grant program, which we're now about to kind of launch the culmination of, like, the 3.0 is going live in July. I hosted a kind of impact retreat with our board and a few other and our team and some other people to talk about everything I've learned from reviewing now hundreds of applications over the last few years, going through several cycles with the grant review team, and just finding all the gaps and challenges and questions and opportunities for making things better in terms of our criteria and also the support we're offering. So I'm really, really excited about that. I think that's been a really successful example of, like, coming and doing something that I set out to do. And it's really exciting that we're just a few weeks away from that.
And how did you find the resources? Because obviously as a nonprofit, you have to herd cats. How did you think about, I need people, I need this. How did you get them excited to do this?
That's a great question. One thing we've done pretty well is when we have events, we bring our nonprofit partners, we invite them at least, and many of them come, which is great, and they talk about their work. We often host our events at their facilities. So we've had events at Broad Street, Now Love, we've had events at Phil Abundance, at Manna. So when folks get to actually see the work up close, or they're doing a volunteer session with one of our partners, I think that really helps motivate people and feel the tangible impact of what can otherwise be a slightly squishy kind of day-to-day workload. So I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, it does. I think people realize, like, what's out there and how much sometimes they're missing, because when you work, especially now we're working from home, you forget what's out there right in your backyard. And Philly in particular is such a wonderful source of arts and entertainment and philanthropic ways. And if only people could realize the breadth of wealth of we have it right in our back door in Philadelphia alone. So,
and also the need. Need in that's really what Life Science Cares is all about, is meeting the need. And I think we bring that in front of people in a way that they maybe haven't otherwise been confronted with it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that need in 1 second. You're listening to Shadow Her Podcast. I'm Marcia O'Connor, the host. We're with Morgan Berman. We'll be right back.
When I founded Forge Wealth Management, I created a firm that aims to put our clients' interests first. Our clients are our priority. We create customized financial plans tailored to your needs and deliver them in a clear and concise manner. We are committed to our relationship with you and want to be part of your life journey. Welcome to Forge Wealth Management. We look forward to meeting you.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Shadow Her Podcast. I'm Marcia O'Connor, your host, and we are so fortunate to have Morgan Berman from Life Science Cares of Philadelphia. I don't even know how she found the time to do this today, because people say I'm busy, but I think she has me beat by a mile. And we were just talking about, moving forward with Life Science Cares and where we're going and the impact behind it. So, Morgan, you've done a phenomenal job. You've only been there for a couple of years. What's next? What's next for Life Science Cares?
Great question. Well, it'll be 3 years in September, if you can believe it, which I'm still wrapping my head around. But
fast.
What's next is the launch of the grant program. So we are going to be running a new, I think, pretty special grant program, where it is an open application for general operating funds, 4 slots for $100,000 for 3 years. So it's a $300K total per organization grant over 3 years. And, we're really going to be working closely and deeply with these organizations. And I'm just really excited to see the impact that's going to have for whoever winds up getting selected by the review committee. So that's one. Yeah. The other one is, at the end of the summer, we will be having our Project On-Ramp celebration. And Project On-Ramp is the program that we run in partnership with about half a dozen other nonprofits that are supporting low-income first-generation college students from the Philadelphia area, or at least placing them in paid internships in the Philadelphia area at life science companies. And this is going to be our 3rd year. We're going to have 14 students who are doing that work, being paid by local companies all summer to basically get their foot in the door in a way that they might not have otherwise been able to.
Nice.
So on August 6th, we're going to celebrate them at CIC Philadelphia. We're going to have a lunch reception, and we invite any potential employers that want to get involved to come to that as well, so we can hopefully get them onboarded to be employers for next summer's class of students.
Have you talked to Recruit Philly as well? Not Recruit Philly, but I think it's
Campus Philly?
Campus Philly? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we know them well.
Good. Yeah. So I get them involved because they're doing a great job. And then I think also too, I think with all the colleges out there, there are just so many kids that even this year that couldn't get jobs.
Yeah.
And so anything to do out there regarding internships or just to be in the connector for all that, because so many kids just, it's not the same. They don't, there's just not as many programs, and a lot of employers don't want to take the time to train individuals because they're not in the office all the time, and being from remote is way harder to do it. So I think that's great. How can we help you get the word out, and how can we get you more visibility?
I love that question. Yeah. We want to get in front of employers who either are a biotech or pharma company or have a practice that services that industry. We need to meet with folks who would be the champion for the hiring, for the budgeting, but also the people who would then mentor and supervise. So anyone like that is a decision maker at a company in an HR capacity probably would be the best fit, that we can get that buy-in. But often it's the CEO themselves or someone in the C-suite that maybe they themselves were first generation or grew up from a low-income family, and they understand how much harder it is to build that network when you're starting from scratch, when your family is not going to make the call that's going to get you your resume to the top of the pile. Like, we want to find folks who are going to resonate with that story and will go out of their way to save a spot for a student like that, and will put the budget to match it so that they can actually pay them.
Have you tied into a group, Women in Bio, as well?
Yes, I'm actually presenting, or we're sponsoring an event. I think it's next Wednesday. We're doing an event with them.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I always find like a lot of the women who are moms and will do anything for our kids to basically get an internship and jobs and make sure that they're all set out there. So trying to get them incorporated as much as possible, which is really cool. What do you think your best avenue for marketing is right now?
It's a great question. I think it's a lot of in-person interactions. Like, I'm actually right after this going to be doing a roundtable discussion with a bunch of C-suite folks in the biotech world. And I think I'm actually going to get to do a presentation on the ROI of philanthropy. So I'm going to be very much hard selling the work that we do to our target market. So I think that's a great way. But I think it's also when someone at a company does a volunteer day of service with their company that has basically partnered with us to be a corporate partner, so we can do that engagement with them. When they go home and talk about, how great that felt and the impact it had on them, and how much better, engaged they feel in the community, or how proud they are of their company, talking about that, sharing in their network, I think that really helps build up the awareness and the value of the work that we do in the sector. And I think that's probably the most effective way. Like, I can go do my sales pitch, but when you hear it from like a customer, someone who's really touched it and felt it, that's when it really resonates.
Yeah, I bet. And it's funny, like, how do you need volunteers? How can we let this podcast help you in regards to getting visibility and more people? Sure.
Well, I would say just the most pressing thing is getting potential employers to that on-ramp event on August 6th. That's our next kind of big public push to like pull people into our kind of network and to understand the value of the work that we and our partners do. Yep. So I think that would be the biggest one. But then if anyone's interested in like, being involved and they're not quite sure how, they can just reach out to me. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with them where I can talk through how, there's a bunch of different ways that we engage. There's the corporate partnership program for companies, but there's also a board of advisor program where an individual can sit on the board of advisors and join a committee if they like, or in other ways kind of be an ambassador for us. So there's all kinds of things we can talk about if someone's like, oh, I want to do good and I'm a part of the life science sector in some way. Like, that's, please, let's just talk and I can tell you more about it.
Oh, I love it. I think also, so 40% of my business, my main business, which is the O'Connor Group, is all life sciences. And so it'd be great to send something out to them about what we're doing. Because once this podcast goes live and all, a lot of people do listen to it. People I don't even know out there listen to this, and which is great. But we love trying to get the word out there about doing good and helping others and being like, hey, we're all in this together. Because you just never know when you need somebody one day. And to get out there. But if you had CEOs, basically, if you had your one wish, but CEOs out there saying, how's my biggest impact to help you? Really, what is that one thing?
Well, I think the most, the biggest way they can help is by becoming a corporate partner. But, we'd want to make sure that's a good fit for their team and everything. But that's the most impactful, tangible way for a company to engage with us, because then we put together a whole kind of engagement plan of like days of service and give back days and board of advisor seats and event sponsorships and like just all the different touch points they can have with us and our different stakeholders throughout the year and the impact that they can have. So that's like a kind of quasi bespoke process with like different tiers of commitment based on the size of the company. So if a CEO is like, this sounds like this could be for me, I would say like corporate partnership is probably what would be a great fit if they have, a team that's looking to get engaged in that way.
So what do you do for fun? Because you're always busy beaver. So what do you do for fun?
I have two things that I do that are not work, are not startups, and are not family specifically, or at least being a parent. But my thing that I've been doing now for 8 years is maybe longer, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Actually, I'm a purple belt, recently got promoted. And my husband and I have been doing that now basically since we met. I got him into it. He just got promoted too, but I got promoted first. So,
noted.
Yeah. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is what keeps me sane. And then also gardening. I have a kind of I have a front yard and a backyard. It's kind of like my garden mullet. So in the front yard, I have a natives garden that I've been developing to help pollinators. And I've got a turtle we built a little pond, so there's a water source. And in the backyard, we just built a peace garden, which is something that I was inspired to do when I visited Reed's Organic Farm out near the shore, where we've been fixing up a house and building out our garden over the last couple years. And there's this veteran there who has he's on full disability from his PTSD, and he has used gardening as his way to heal. And when I stumbled upon this garden at the farm, and it's this massive garden with all these plants I'd never seen before. And he was telling me that what he does is he plants plants from warring countries in the same bed. And it's his kind of very local way of having a global message. And so my husband, he was a refugee from Ukraine, and we have a lot of family in Israel as well. And so we planted Russian and Ukrainian and Israeli and Palestinian and some other Middle Eastern plants in our backyard, and created a peace garden in the backyard that we actually just opened up last week.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. I just gave me chills actually. So, but I love that because I think it's just, it says so much, but you're also proud of it. And there's nothing like a garden. And I don't know about you, but I love having my hands in dirt. So, nothing like it. When you're close to the earth, man, it just you feel zen right there. And I love it. So thank you for doing it. How about, I always ask people all the time, right now, there's a lot of good books out there. They're all reading. What is your top book that you're reading, or Audible? Sometimes it's Audible versus a hard copy.
Well, you found my Achilles heel in my very busy schedule. Books have unfortunately gone by the wayside. I'm pretty much all podcasts these days because I'm probably going to spend like 5 hours in the car today.
Oh my.
So I listen to Sam Harris podcast a lot. I really enjoy his perspective and the guests that he brings on, and sometimes the conflicts, the arguments they get into, healthy debate. So really enjoy that podcast. But I also love I listen to a lot of startup podcasts and Planet Money and things like that, and How I Built This and things like that.
Guy Raz, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's the best. I know I got really addicted when I started entrepreneurship, just to feel like I'm not alone out there. There's a lot more stuff I've been doing this for 17 years. So when you first started, or entrepreneurship was not a cool word, and now it's a cool word. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
it's a cool word, but there's a lot of work behind the cool word, and people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, do you? Because it's every day. You just don't really take a break. It's really hard to do that. So for sure. What's next on the horizon for you as to, like, I would say, listen, 2020 happened. I can't ever say where you see yourself in 5 years, right? But where do you see yourself, like, down the road?
I mean, I love my life. I'll have older kids. I'll be able to, you know what? The one thing that I think about that will be materially different in my life is that I will have children who are fully potty trained, can speak, and don't drink bottles. And I will be able to say, let's go get in the car and go do this thing. And we can do it without all of the drama and baggage that my life currently requires to go do anything. So that will be some, traveling. I really miss traveling, locally, internationally, like just anything that doesn't involve, anyone who's a parent knows the pain that I'm talking about. So that will be different. Hopefully our country will be in a better place in terms of our ability to trust each other, have trusted sources of truth, and, not be on the brink of civil war. That would be great.
That would be great. And that is basically, from your lips to God's ears, my dear. So I think we're all hoping the same thing. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday. I'm like, we could pick the election today, and it's still not going to make a difference. Our thought, our process is whoever we pick. It's just, not really happy with who we can pick, but that's a whole different conversation for sure. So absolutely. Amen to that. Well, I want to say thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much for doing so much for Life Science Cares. Thanks for being that entrepreneur out there. How do people get a hold of you?
So my email is morgan@lifesciencecares.org.
Great. And I know you're on LinkedIn as well. So
I am, yeah. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if that's easier. I pretty much respond to any message that isn't, we're an IT firm based in wherever. Can we help supply you with engineers? So as long as you don't send me that message, I will happily respond.
You're so good. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your time. And thank you, Morgan, for your wisdom today. Again, I'm Marcia O'Connor, your host today on Shadow Her Podcast. And don't forget, believe in you, because we do. And until next time, we'll see you soon. But out there, keep on plugging, people. We're behind you 100%.